They say every house has a story, but some stories were never meant to be told. You're about to hear 4 real tales from people who walked into houses they should have stayed far away from. Houses that watched, that waited, that remembered. Behind each door lies a secret, each window a witness to something far more terrifying than just ghosts. These stories aren't just haunted, they are cursed. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and welcome to Whisper Tales. But be warned, once you enter, something might follow you back. Story 1. The house that wouldn't let go. When I bought the Carter house, I thought it would be the smartest decision of my life. Turns out, it was the biggest mistake I ever made. I wasn't looking for a forever home, just a property I could fix up and flip for a profit. I'd been dabbling in small renovations, but this was going to be my biggest project yet. The house was over 100 years old, and while it had charm, it had also been abandoned for at least 2 decades. The real estate agent seemed desperate to sell it. "Just sign quickly," she said, not even making eye contact. "You're getting it for a steal." I should have asked why, but I didn't. I was too excited. The neighborhood was quiet, the structure was solid, and the price was dirt cheap. Almost too cheap. The house was located in a remote area, near the woods, with only a few scattered homes nearby. No neighbors within shouting distance. That felt like a bonus. No complaints about construction noise. The first time I walked in, I noticed how cold it felt, not just physically, but emotionally. Like stepping into a memory that didn't want to be remembered. Dust floated in the air like ash, and the walls had deep cracks, like veins running through rotting skin. The smell was a mix of mildew and something else, something metallic. But I ignored it. I was here for business. I started the renovations the very next day. The house had history, and I wanted to preserve some of it. Original hardwood floors, antique light fixtures, even an old mirror that was nailed to the wall in the master bedroom. I couldn't remove it. It wouldn't budge. Almost like the wall didn't want to let it go. Still, everything was on schedule. I stayed in the house during the workdays, sleeping in a small guest room on an air mattress, just to save time commuting. It wasn't ideal, but I didn't mind. That was, until the second week. It started small. I'd leave my tools in one place, and the next morning, they'd be somewhere else. At first, I thought I was just forgetful. But one night, I left my hammer on the kitchen counter. When I woke up, it was sitting at the foot of my mattress. I lived alone. The following night, I was awakened by the sound of footsteps above me. Slow, deliberate steps, like someone pacing. I stayed frozen under the blanket, listening. The ceiling above me creaked. One step, then another, directly over my head. I waited until sunrise to check the upper floor. It was empty, dusty, untouched. But the mirror in the master bedroom, it had a crack in it. A new one. I didn't sleep there again. Instead, I started working. Longer hours and leaving before dark. I'd return in the morning when the sunlight made the place feel less angry. But one evening, I stayed too long. I lost track of time while painting the living room. By the time I looked at the clock, it was already past midnight. The house was quiet, too quiet. I turned off my tools, packed up, and headed for the door. But it wouldn't open. I turned the knob, pulled hard, but nothing. It felt jammed. Then, behind me, I heard a soft creak. I turned around. In the reflection of a nearby window, I saw someone standing in the hallway. I spun around. No one was there. Heart pounding, I backed away. My flashlight flickered. The air around me grew colder, like invisible ice forming on my skin. Then I heard her voice. Soft, broken. "Why are you in my house?" I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the back door handle. It opened without effort. I sprinted out into the yard, not stopping until I reached my car. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my car outside a 24-hour diner, replaying everything in my head. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe the fumes from the paint were messing with me. That's what I told myself. But the next day, I noticed something terrifying. The name, Emily, was carved into the wood paneling beside the mirror upstairs. It hadn't been there before. I asked around town about the house. An old man at the local grocery store recognized it. "You bought the Carter place?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. "That house should have been torn down. You know what happened there, don't you?" I didn't. He told me about Emily Carter, daughter of the original owners. She went missing inside the house. Her parents claimed she vanished overnight. Police searched everywhere, but they never found a body. The case went cold. The parents eventually moved away. Some said they lost their minds. Others said the house took her. "They say she never left," the man whispered. "They say she's still waiting. I should have left then, but I didn't. Something about the house pulled me back. Like I wasn't done yet." I went back a few days later during the daytime. I told myself I'd just collect my tools and leave for good. But when I walked inside, the house was warm, welcoming. It felt different, calmer. The door closed behind me softly. I walked upstairs one last time, drawn to the master bedroom. The mirror was still there. Still, cracked. I stepped in front of it. My reflection looked wrong. Slower. Out of sync. My arms moved, but the reflection lagged. Then, my reflection smiled. Before I did, I froze. "You're home," it whispered. Then the mirror shattered. I fell backward, hitting the floor hard. Shards of glass rained down around me, but not a single piece cut me. When I stood up, I saw something on the wall behind where the mirror had been. A door, a hidden panel, sealed shut for decades. I pried it open with a crowbar. Dust and cobwebs filled the air. Behind the panel was a small, windowless room. It smelled of rot and something else, death. In the center of the room was a wooden rocking chair. On it sat a small, brittle skeleton wrapped in a decaying white dress. Clutched in its hand was a diary. I didn't want to read it, but I had to. The diary belonged to Emily. Her final entries described being locked in the secret room by her own mother, accused of consorting with dark spirits. Her last entry was barely legible, written with trembling hands. "I hear them in the walls. They won't let me leave. Mama won't open the door. Please, someone, let me out." The entries stopped after that. I called the police, anonymously. They took the remains away quietly, no questions asked. It made the news for a few days. Remains of girl found in old Dunstow home. No one linked it to me. But that's not where it ends. Because she's not at peace. I still hear her. When I'm alone at night, the lights flicker. Mirrors crack around me. My reflection sometimes lags. Sometimes it stares even when I look away. A week ago, I found the word, "stay," carved into my bathroom wall. And last night, while I was brushing my teeth, the mirror fogged up with steam, except for one spot, a handprint. On the inside, I wiped it clean, but it came back 5 minutes later. I don't live in the Carter house anymore. But I think it still lives in me. And every mirror I look into, I see her smiling back. Story 2. My brother's imaginary friend. They say imaginary friends are harmless, just a part of growing up. But what happens when that imaginary friend doesn't go away? What happens when you start seeing it too? I never believed in ghosts. I believed in facts, logic, and science. But something happened when I was 12 years old that even now, 2 decades later, still keeps me up at night. It all started the summer we moved into the old colonial house on Hawthorne Lane. My father had gotten a job transfer, and we couldn't afford much, so when we saw a spacious 4-bedroom home for such a low price, we jumped at the chance. The house was old, yes, but beautiful, Wooden floors, stained glass windows, creaky stairs. It looked like something out of a movie. I moved in with my mom, dad, and my 6-year-old brother, Arjun. Arjun was always a quiet kid. Sweet, but a little off. He was shy around strangers, spoke mostly to me or mom, and hated loud noises. But he was gentle, loving. That's why it surprised me when he changed after we moved. The first night in the house, Arjun didn't want to sleep alone. I heard him crying through the walls, whispering something about the boy at the end of the bed. When I went in to check, he was sitting upright, eyes wide, staring into the corner of the room. "There's a boy here," he whispered. "He wants to play with me." I asked what boy. He just pointed at the wall and said, "His name is Milo." I brushed it off. A new house, unfamiliar sounds. It made sense his imagination would act up. I tucked him in, turned on a nightlight, and stayed with him until he fell asleep. The next morning, he seemed fine. Happy, even. "Mira," he said over breakfast, "Milo says the house is happy I'm here." I laughed. "Yeah, well, tell Milo I hope he likes pancakes." Arjun giggled and nodded like he actually would. But over the next few days, strange things started happening. His bedroom door would open on its own in the middle of the night. We'd hear footsteps upstairs when everyone was downstairs. Arjun began talking to himself constantly. Long, detailed conversations, like he was answering real questions. I caught him playing hide and seek alone. "Who are you playing with?" I asked. "Milo," he said. "He likes to hide in dark places." Once, I followed Arjun to the closet. He was talking to the open air. "Don't be mean," he whispered. "Mira didn't mean to upset you." Then he turned to me and said, "He says you shouldn't go in the attic." "What attic?" I asked. He pointed to the hallway ceiling. "That one." Sure enough, there was a pull-down ladder to the attic we hadn't even noticed yet. My parents weren't worried. "He'll grow out of it," my dad said. "Kids do this all the time." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Arjun was getting pale. He'd wake up with scratches on his arms and legs. He began drawing disturbing pictures, stick figures with black, hollow eyes. Some were hanging from trees. Others were burning in what looked like a fireplace. I snuck into his room one day and looked through his drawings. There were dozens of them, all of a little boy with no mouth. "Milo," he whispered from behind me. "He doesn't talk with words." I jumped. "How does he talk?" I asked. Arjun smiled. "With thoughts. He whispers inside my head." One night, things escalated. I woke up to Arjun screaming. Like really screaming, blood-curdling fear. I ran to his room, and he was curled into a ball on the bed, shaking. "He's mad," he sobbed. I told him I didn't want to play anymore. "Now he's mad." I hugged him tightly, and for the first time, I believed him. Because as I held my brother, I looked over his shoulder and saw something. Something crouched in the corner of the room. It was the shape of a boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old. But his eyes were too large, pitch black. His mouth was sewn shut with dark thread. He didn't move. He just stared at us, twitching slightly. And then, he was gone. After that night, I refused to sleep alone. I stayed in Arjun's room with the lights on. I kept a flashlight and a metal bat nearby. I begged my parents to believe me. But they just rolled their eyes. "You're feeding into his imagination," Mom said. "You need to be the adult." I tried. I really did. But the nightmares got worse. We both began sleepwalking. I'd wake up in the hallway, or at the bottom of the stairs, with no memory of getting up. One night, I woke up to the attic ladder already pulled down, and muddy footprints leading up. I stood frozen, staring at the dark opening above. Something was up there. I could feel it. The next morning, I made up my mind. I had to go into the attic. I waited until everyone was out. I climbed the ladder with a flashlight and stepped into the thick, dusty darkness. It smelled like mold and rust. Cobwebs brushed against my face. The floor creaked with every step. In the far corner, I saw a pile of boxes and old trunks. I started opening them. Just dusty books, broken toys, old clothes. But then I found a box labeled M. Carter, in faded handwriting. Inside were yellowed photos of a young boy, dark hair, pale skin, wide eyes. One photo was of him standing in this very attic, pointing at the floor. I lifted the floorboard where he pointed. Underneath was a diary. The diary belonged to Milo Carter, a boy who lived in the house 80 years ago. His entries started out innocent, but over time, they turned disturbing. Mother says I'm not right. She says I talk to shadows. The whispering won't stop. They say they live in the walls. I showed them to her. I told her their names. She screamed and locked me up. The final entry chilled my blood. They say I belong to them now. They're going to keep me forever. And soon, I'll bring them someone new. The entry was dated 1 week before his disappearance. There was never a report of where Milo went. But legend says a boy went missing in this house. Some say he was taken. Others say he became part of it. I ran downstairs and told my parents everything. They didn't believe me, of course. But that night, they finally saw it for themselves. Mom woke up screaming, covered in bruises. Said a boy with no mouth was standing at the foot of the bed. Dad saw shadows moving across the hallway, even when the lights were on. They didn't argue anymore. We moved out the next day. It's been 20 years. Arjun doesn't remember much. He says it feels like a bad dream. But sometimes, when he's tired or sick, he mumbles in his sleep. Sometimes he says the name Milo. Last week, I visited my old childhood room, just for closure. There, scratched faintly into the closet door, were the words, "Still here." And on the wall, drawn in a child's hand, "Mira can play too." Story 3. The Mirror Messages. My name is Rashid, and I haven't slept properly in 6 months. I know that sounds like an exaggeration. But if you went through what I did, if you saw what I saw, you'd understand why closing my eyes feels like gambling with my soul. Let me start from the beginning. I moved into a small apartment in Pune after getting promoted at my job. It wasn't luxurious, but it was cozy. 1 bedroom, a study, and a compact kitchen. The best part was the rent. Dirt cheap. Almost suspiciously cheap. I should have taken that as a warning. The apartment had a large, antique mirror in the bedroom wall. The landlord said it was part of the original decor, built into the wall during the 70s, and couldn't be removed. It was beautiful. Carved wooden frame. Vintage glass, a little worn around the edges. But it gave me the creeps from day one. I chalked it up to nerves. I had never lived alone before. That first night, I had a nightmare. In the dream, I stood in front of the mirror. But my reflection didn't mimic my movements. It smiled when I didn't, blinked when I didn't, and then it leaned forward, slowly, pressing its hand against the glass. I woke up sweating, brushed it off. Just a dream, I told myself. But the next night, I had the same exact dream. And the next, and the next. Each time, the reflection became more independent, more real. It would grin wider, its eyes darker. And each time, it whispered the same thing: "Wake up. Look again." I started avoiding the mirror. Covered it with a bedsheet during the day. But it didn't help. Weird things began happening around the apartment. I'd hear footsteps at night. Slow, dragging footsteps that circled my bed. My alarm would go off at random times, always 3:33 a.m. The air would grow ice cold for a few minutes, then return to normal. Once, I found a message written in condensation on the bathroom mirror: "You're not alone." I hadn't showered that morning. The mirror shouldn't have fogged up at all. I asked the landlord if anyone had died here. He laughed it off. "Superstitions, sir. This is a good flat." Still, something didn't feel right. Then, one morning, things got worse. I woke up in the hallway. Standing. Fully clothed. I had no memory of getting up, getting dressed, or leaving the bedroom. There were muddy footprints on the tiles, leading back to the mirror. It was uncovered. I'm 100% sure I had covered it the night before. I began recording myself at night. Set up my phone across from the bed. When I watched the first night's footage, I nearly threw up. At exactly 3:33 a.m., I sat up. My eyes were wide open, but I wasn't blinking. I turned toward the mirror, stood up, and walked straight to it. And then, I stood there, just staring, for 20 full minutes. Then I slowly raised my hand, and touched the glass. The moment my hand made contact, my reflection did not move. It just stared at me, smiling. I tried everything. I smudged the room with sage. I put salt around the mirror. I even brought in a local priest to perform a cleansing ritual. Nothing worked. The dreams kept happening. The reflection grew more confident. I started blacking out for hours at a time. My coworkers said I looked pale and dead inside. I started avoiding people altogether. Then one night, I heard the voice while awake. It came from behind me. A whisper, cold and sharp like broken glass. "Break it. Set me free." I ran to the bedroom and ripped the sheet off the mirror. There, written in something red, not paint, was a sentence. "I'm not your reflection anymore." I finally snapped. I picked up the nearest chair and smashed the mirror. Glass exploded everywhere. I was shaking, crying, laughing. But the moment the mirror broke, the apartment went completely silent. No hum of electricity, no fan, no outside sounds. Just nothing. And then, my bedroom door creaked open. Standing in the doorway was me, but older, grayer, dark circles under his eyes. Thin, hollow. He looked at me with dead, glassy eyes and said, "I told you not to break it. Now I'm here." He stepped forward. I screamed and threw the chair again. It passed right through him. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he whispered, "You've been looking at the wrong side of the mirror your whole life." I passed out. When I woke up, the mirror was whole again. Like nothing had happened. But now, the reflection is wrong. I move my hand. It lags. I blink. It doesn't. And every night at 3:33 a.m., I see the other me, just standing there, waiting. I don't sleep anymore. I don't look at any mirror. I cover every reflective surface in my apartment. But it doesn't matter. Sometimes, I still catch a glimpse in the corner of my eye. He's always watching. And sooner or later, I think he'll be the one looking out. Now let's step into the final, most disturbing chapter of today's horror collection. A story where you're wide awake, but unable to scream, trapped in your own body, while something else walks around. Story 4. The Blackout. I never believed in ghosts. I still don't know if I do. But something happened to me last year, something that science, logic, or even doctors couldn't explain. And ever since then, I haven't been the same. It all started the night of the blackout. Let me start from the beginning. After my father passed away, I moved back to my family's old house in the hills near Shimla. It was a 2-story wooden house with creaky floors, an attic, and lots of memories. It had been empty for almost a year. My mother had gone to stay with my aunt after the funeral, and I wanted time alone to heal, study, and figure out my next steps. The weather was peaceful in the mountains, the air fresh, and I thought maybe a quiet life was all I needed. I wish I had never gone back. The first few days were fine. I cleaned the rooms, dusted old photo frames, and set up my study table in the front room facing the garden. During the day, birds chirped, and the hills looked golden in the sunlight. But at night, it was different. The house would make strange sounds. Not the usual creaks or whine through windows, but footsteps. Shuffling. A soft knock on the wall. Like someone tapping gently, just once. Always at 2 a.m. I told myself it was just the house settling. Until the power cut. The electricity went out suddenly on the 6th night. No storm. No rain. Just click. Everything went black at exactly 1:33 a.m. I waited for the inverter to kick in. It didn't. I checked my phone. No signal. Fully charged, but frozen. Weird. I lit a candle and decided to wait it out. I was about to return to bed when I felt something. A touch. Not on my skin, but on the air around me. Like someone was standing too close. Breathing near my ear. My candle flickered, and then I heard it. It's not your house anymore. I spun around. Nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The feeling of being watched didn't leave. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a blurry face behind my lids. Pale, thin lips, eyes that were wrong. Too black, too wide. In the morning, everything seemed normal. The lights came back. My phone worked again. I convinced myself it was sleep deprivation. But deep down, I knew something had entered the house. The second blackout happened the next night. Same time. 1:33 a.m. But this time, it didn't just feel like someone was near me. It felt like someone was inside me. I sat frozen in bed, completely unable to move. My eyes were open, but my body wouldn't respond. I couldn't speak. I couldn't blink. Suddenly, I felt a deep pressure on my chest. Like something was sitting on top of me. Then, cold fingers, slowly brushing down my arms. My neck. You look like her, the voice said. But you don't belong here. I felt a sharp nail slide across my cheek. Then it whispered, "Let me try you on." I gasped and sat up. It was 5:45 a.m. The power had returned. My candle was still burning on the table. Nothing had moved. But I had red marks. Long, thin scratches on both arms. I hadn't scratched myself. I didn't sleep the next night. I stayed up. Lights on, salt. Lines around the bed like I'd read online. I even kept a knife near me. I waited. The clock hit 1:33 a.m. The lights flickered and went out. This time, I didn't feel the presence right away. Everything was still, silent. Then I heard the attic door creak open. I had locked that attic door earlier that day. A thump followed. Then footsteps, slow, barefoot, coming down the stairs, one by one. Each creak was louder than the last. I held my breath. Then, I heard my father's voice. "Anaya, come help me." I froze. My father had been dead for over a year. He died in this house. I ran to the room and slammed the door shut. That's when the breathing began. On the other side of the door. Loud, raspy. Then a whisper. "She wore your skin better than you ever could." The next morning, I checked the attic. Inside, I found something I hadn't seen before, an old trunk I didn't recognize. Inside were women's clothes, but not my mother's. These were very old-fashioned. Dresses from maybe 50 or 60 years ago. And inside one pocket, I found a photo. A woman who looked exactly like me. Same face, same eyes. On the back, it read, "Rena, 1954. Disappeared on a stormy night." I called my mom. She broke down in tears. Then she told me the truth. Before they bought the house, it had belonged to a woman named Rena. She had lived there alone. She went missing during a blackout. Her body was never found. My mother never told me because she didn't want to scare me. But she said my father had seen her many times. After he saw her the last time, she said, he never went upstairs again. That was the night he had the heart attack. I dropped the phone. My legs felt weak. I was next. That night, I packed a bag and decided to leave. I was about to step out the front door when the power cut again. 1:33 a.m. The door wouldn't open. I turned around, and there she was. Rena, wearing my clothes, my face, but smiling in a way I never would. She stepped forward, skin sagging and shifting like a costume. Her eyes completely black. I fell to the floor, frozen. I couldn't move. She leaned down and whispered, "I'll try harder this time." I woke up in the forest behind the house. Alone, in my nightdress, covered in mud. It was morning. My bag, my clothes, and my phone were gone. Back at the house, I found the door unlocked. The attic empty. The photo gone. But when I looked into the mirror in the hallway, I swear, my reflection winked. I don't live there anymore. But sometimes, I wake up with dirt under my nails. Sometimes, I dream I'm still in the attic, watching myself sleep. And once in a while, the power goes out at exactly 1:33 a.m. And I feel her fingers brush my cheek, followed by a whisper, "Almost fits." Here we come to the end of the stories, and congratulations, you made it to the end, but are you sure you're alone? Check behind you. These weren't just stories. They were warnings. And if tonight you hear a tap on your window, don't open it. Just remember one thing. This was Whisper Tales. And we'll be waiting for you, if you dare to come back.